Hello, and thanks for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you're returning, thanks, it means a lot. Okay, we're diving back into this all-metal miniature engine build. If you haven't seen the unboxing, click the link above. Check it out if you want. And we're going to get right into it now. So the instructions say to put the piston and rod assembly together. So these are the pistons, and I already assembled 3 of them, so I'll just go through one of them. The piston and rod assembly sits inside the block, and on top is where the combustion happens with the air-fuel mixture and the spark, and this is what basically goes up and down in the center of your engine to create power. So we'll get one of these together. You take the rest and smear it around the piston, because they gotta be lubed up anyways. So we'll weigh them real quick, see how much they weigh. Got a scale just off screen. So about 0.65 ounces, or 0.040 pounds, or 18 grams. So we'll measure it in grams, much easier. So 18 grams. 18 grams. 18. Oh, this one weighs 19. Nope, 18. Ah, so the pistons and rods are all matched. That's funny. So you set these off to the side. Let's get the block, and we'll weigh the block real quick. Wow, the block weighs 355 grams, or 12.5 ounces. 0.7 pounds. That's a heavy block. Alright. We gotta get the crankshaft now. Weigh the crankshaft. It's 175 grams, 6 ounces, or 0.3 pounds. So we want to lube up everything on the block, all the journals that they ride on. You want to lube all those up. Alright, we got the crankshaft journals all lubed up. And now we're going to drop the crankshaft in there. And we'll see how it spins. Feels nice and smooth. Alright. So now it's telling us to flip the engine this way for some reason, and put these little cap bearings and bolts on. And the caps weigh probably nothing, 3 grams, 0.10 of an ounce. So we'll lube all these up now. Should be very smooth. See? Alright. The next part, it wants to add the pistons now into there. So we're going to have to lubricate up the pistons and start inserting them. So I'm just going to turn this over real quick. And we're going to have to lube up the pistons. Okay, I put a few of the pistons into the cylinders, and now we have the rotating assembly almost all the way in. So all we're going to do is take a little bit of lubricant and put it on the edge of this piston. These things weigh 3 grams or 0.10 ounces. So as you can see, everything does have some weight to it. Like I said, this is a full metal kit. I'm not going to be shy with the grease either. We want to get it all on there. Make sure we get one of these little screws here, these cap screws, with the washer on there, the lock washer. And these caps seem to have some type of arrow on them. If you can see there. I don't know if it'll get in focus. There it is. There's a little arrow, so I pointed them towards the front of the engine, like you would normally do on any normal engine. So we're going to put that on there. We're going to have to get this piston back up top. And let's get it screwed in. And we'll get the other one on. Alright, and there you have it. That's the rotating assembly inside the block, which consists of the crankshaft, the connecting rods, the pistons. You see they're moving up and down. I'm sure the camera is blurry right now, sorry about that. As you can see, the fuel and air mixture ignite inside the cylinder, pushing down on the pistons, which rotates the crankshaft and acts like a big counterweight, and it transfers the energy out to the transmission, which powers your car. So that's how the rotating assembly works. The next thing we got to do is assemble the cylinder head. Okay, now we're on to the cylinder head assembly and getting all the components in there. This is the piece that sits on top of the cylinder block that was assembled and houses all the valve terrain and allows the air-fuel mixture to come into the engine, be ignited during the combustion process, and then exit it back out on the exhaust side. So the valves come in a few pieces. They got the valve seat, and this is the actual little valve. There we are. It's very detailed. And then it has a valve seat, just like a real car. Little valve seat, a little valve spring, and a screw-on retainer. That's not I mean, I haven't seen these in a real car, but this is about as close as you're going to get with these kits. But usually they're 2 little metal tabs and they're called keepers, but this is the valve keeper in this metal engine assembly. And I'll set one of the valves in real quick. We have to get it oiled up, and then I will speed the video through the rest. So it's calling for a little bit of oil on here, and we want to lube up the fat part of the stem here, just like you would in a regular car. You lube these up before you send them in, so that they don't get all bound up in the valve guide. We're going to send it up into the hole. It's in there. And now we want to drop the valve seat down on there. Little valve seat, the spring, and then we want to screw the valve assembly onto there. And that's how you get it all assembled. Oh, actually I forgot to weigh this thing. Let me weigh this thing real quick. weighs 115 grams, 4 ounces, or about 0.2 pounds. And then we also have little mini spark plugs that have to go in there. Those things are pretty cool. And they weigh about 2 grams each. So we'll get everything assembled on here. Alright, we got one of the valves in. As you can see, it actuates. And then we also want to get the spark plugs threaded in. Spark plug is what actually ignites the air fuel mixture coming in. So your air fuel mixture will come in through the runners, ignite in here. You get the spark out of there, and then it will come out the exhaust side. And these would just actuate on the cams to allow the gases to come in and out of the cylinder block. Okay, we got the cylinder head mostly assembled with the valve components, and as you can see, it is extremely detailed. Again, I mean, the detail is just amazing on this thing. Try and get that a little better in focus. There we go. You can just see it's all aluminum, all steel. The valve's actually open. So we'll get the last valve in there now just to show how it goes in. And I don't think I measured the entire assembly. That's the valve, spring, keeper, and retainer. And that all together weighs 1 gram total. So there's 16 of these. So 16 grams. The valve components is what went into this thing. Let me get a little bit of grease on here. Next item we need to get in is the camshaft keepers or guides. Basically the camshafts sit on top of this. This sits on top of the valve assembly. Let's see how much this weighs. Maybe call it camshaft girdle, or I can look it up and check what they call it in the book. They call it something different, but it weighs 63 grams or 2.2 ounces. So it said something about lining the arrow up here. There we are. So we have the camshaft cradle on there, just sits right on top, and we gotta just insert a whole bunch of bolts there. So I won't show that, I'll just go ahead and put them all in. Okay, I got what the book calls the cam seat, which is this little girdle thing right here put together. I got all the cam caps pre-lubed, and now we're going to install the camshafts. So they are both the same exact camshafts. They have eccentric lobes on them to activate the valves, and they weigh about 1 ounce each or 29 grams. So they just set on top like this, and we'll get them both put in and installed, get all the caps on. Alright, we got the camshafts in. I wanted to just show this last cam cap going in. I want to rotate the cams. Make sure they rotate freely. You can see them bumping the valves. Do both sides. And now we're going to get the 2 cam gears on the front here. Okay, the cylinder heads together. It's extremely detailed. Everything's greased up. Now we gotta put on the manifold flanges and a timing guide. So the manifold flanges weigh 11 grams 0.40 ounces or 0.024 pounds with their bolts. We're going to get these two bolted onto the head and get the timing guide bolted on. And the timing guide weighs 8 grams. Alright, and that completes the cylinder head. See how much it weighs as an assembly. It's 343 grams. It's 12.1 ounce, 12.1 ounce, or 0.75 pounds. So it's almost a full pound of metal for the cylinder head. And these are what act like little doors on the engine when it's running to let the intake and exhaust valves open. Lets gas out and it lets the fuel air mixture into the combustion chamber. The camshaft lobes are what operates the valves, opens them up, and this is what you would call a cylinder head assembly. So the next step is to get the oil pan together and get all the pieces ready for the block to mount. Okay, we got the oil pan here, and we're going to weigh it, and weighs about 0.38 pounds, 176 grams, or 6.2 ounces. And this is where everything's housed, the circuitry to make it run. It's where you have the limited edition stamp, all the logoing. So we have to get this circuit board in here and get everything situated. Okay, we got the inside of the oil pan assembly put together. It's got a 3.7 volt 500 milliamp hour battery in there. Try and get it in better focus. There we go. The circuit board to turn the motors and everything on off switch, and a recharge jack because this is a rechargeable battery. So we'll put the top plate over it. We'll get it closed up, get the legs put on it. Okay, we got the oil pan assembly together. It's got some nice feet for it to stand on. It's got the wire that comes out and goes to the engine. And we'll get it weighed and see how much it weighs. Let's see. Comes in at 9 ounces. Just over 9 ounces. Just over a half pound, or 256 grams. So that's pretty heavy for the oil pan. And as we're flipping through, now we're going to drop and assemble the engine block onto the oil pan. Alright, we got the oil pan attached to the block. We're going to do the last bolt right down here just to show. It's the last one. Now we're going to work on getting the rear main seal housing and the front main seal housing, or oil pump, however you want to call it, on whatever engine installed on this. Alright, the lower engine block assembly is put together. We're going to go ahead and weigh it now and see how much it comes out to. Alright, the entire assembly, lower assembly, clocks in at 927 grams, 32.7 ounces, or just over 2 pounds. So this thing is massive, it's heavy, it's coming out, it's looking nice. The next thing I'm going to do is to get the cylinder head and the flywheel on. So let me get the parts together for that. Okay, we got the cylinder head and flywheel on. The cylinder head bolts were kind of a pain to get in. They're pretty deep down there. Tighten this last one up. Make sure it's all snug, and then you want to make sure that everything rotates in the engine properly. And as you can see, it's nice and smooth both ways. So now the instructions tell us to start working on the starter motor to get this thing to spin around. So let me get those parts laid out. Let's see how much this whole assembly weighs now. This is the bulk majority of the engine. So it weighs in at 1,311 grams, or 46.25 ounces, 2.888 pounds, so almost 2.9 pounds. This is a heavy toy. Really, really nice quality, like I said. Everything came together pretty well. Spinning smooth. I know there's other engines like this from the company who makes this one, but not the INVICTA Faded Lines brand. This one just seems to be better quality than the ones that I've seen online. So let me get the starter motor pieces laid out. Okay, we got all the pieces for the starter motor over here. We're going to start to assemble it. And the starter assembly is complete. Now it's going to call for it to be mounted to the actual block, which I believe is going to be right here. Let's see how this mounts. I believe that mounts just like that. So we'll get 2 more bolts and we'll get it on there. Alright, the starter motor is bolted on. Let's see. So it does rotate by hand. Don't forget to put a little oil on the flywheel. Okay, we got all the pieces for the alternator here. We're going to start to assemble it. Alright, everything looks good. It's a little miniature alternator. We'll get that bolted up to the engine block, we'll get the pieces, and we have to get the water pump together next. Okay, we got the water pump. We're going to put it together now. The impeller is nice and smooth. So now we'll get it mounted up. Actually, let's weigh them real quick. So the alternator weighs 65 grams, 2.3 ounces, 0.14 pounds. The water pump weighs 55 grams, 1.95 ounces, or 0.12 pounds. Let's get them all bolted on now. So we got the water pump and the alternator on. So the next step is to assemble the tensioner and get the belt system set up for the timing system. So let me get all those parts out now. Okay, we're going to get the belt tensioner assembly together. The belt tensioner is on. Now we're going to move on to the timing and crank assembly, it looks like. So we have to get this crank key on here, which is keyed, and it does have the timing mark on it, just like a real one. We gotta get that situated down here. And there is some timing marks down here on the engine that we'll have to line up. You can see there's a timing mark on the sprocket and on the oil pump right there, or the block. So we want to line those up. It's pretty much good. And it calls for the right side guide chain. Okay, we got the timing assembly together. The timing chain guides, they were a little tight in the beginning, but a little bit of fine adjusting and it worked. So now we're going to put the crank pulley on and the belt system. two of them and we'll adjust the tensioner. Get that down there. The auto tensioner actually, well, not auto, manual tensioner actually works. So we'll put a little bit of tension, a little bit of preload on that belt. And I believe that completes this engine model. Start it up real quick. No, let's not tilt it. Everything seems to be working. This little alternator has pigtails coming out the back, so I may do another video on that. Drop a comment and let me know. I plan on making upgrades to this little thing. Let's see how much it weighs. Alright, this thing comes in at a massive 3.752 pounds, 1,702 grams, or 60.5 ounces, 0.05 ounces. Wow, this thing is huge. Alright, my next video I'll go into talking about it, get everything cleaned up, get it running good, and go into detailed pictures. We got one more item to put on it, actually. Yep, and that's the little oil filter. Alright, let's reweigh it again. 3.8 pounds even. 1724 grams, or 60.8 ounces. Wow. 3.8 pounds on the button. Let's see. £3.8 pounds. That's how much this thing weighs. Stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.